happens is he's issuing, look at that, $225 million worth of bonds in August 2014 for sewer system capital improvements.
Oh, yeah.
$31 million August 2014 for cash flow borrowing. $110 million in bonds for water system capital improvements. You're looking at more than a quarter of $1 billion rather, here in just in August alone, in fall, of debt by issuing bonds. And what's going on here? So they want to extract money for sewer, and here we've got all these bonds going out. They're borrowing all this money. This is ridiculous. They don't know when to stop. The combined sewer overflow project that the federal government supposedly made the city of Portland do in order to keep the water of Willamette River from having overflow issues with the sewer. And so the city just rolled over, hardly fought it, went ahead and implemented it. So now they've got this huge tunnel that runs down underneath of the west side of the Willamette River, and then goes underneath of the river going toward the north direction, and then combines with another tunnel that's going underneath the OMSI that goes down the east side of the river, the east side corridor, and continues on its way all the way north to near Kelly Point Park, where there is, near the Columbia Slough, where the Columbia River wastewater treatment plant is. This is a huge multi-billion-dollar project that took like 10 years. You know, it's a $5 or $6 billion. I can't remember what the numbers are. They're way up there.
This is additional debt, of course.
Right, additional debt. They just keep adding debt.
They just keep adding debt.
They don't know how to control themselves.
Debt to who?
To the taxpayer, the ratepayer. In this situation, that's why our water bills are so high. Our water bills are among the highest in the nation because they keep adding on these capital expenditures from these, quote, federal mandates that the government gave supposedly to require us to keep our water clean, and we required us to build this huge system to divert the water so that it doesn't go into the Willamette River.
Because we have runaway debt, we have runaway utility increases.
Bills, and we have issues downtown with City Hall with having problems with money. Not being able to fund a lot of things. That's why they're coming to us with street fees and asking us for street fees, or they're doing all these, they're jacking up the fees to help offset revenue issues that normally would be taken care of with taxes and with tax revenue. And it's driving people out of the city. It drives the long-time old residents out of the city, and the new people coming in don't notice it because where they're coming from, life is very expensive. Like if you live down in California, you're paying way more than we do, but their infrastructure is falling apart. So why would you want to use that system that those people are running from as an example of how much money we should be spending here in this city when those systems are bankrupt? Edmund Brown and all those guys down in Jerry Brown and those guys in California, their whole background, their whole state government is, the infrastructure is falling apart. They could collapse any year now. They're barely making their budgets every year. And so California's falling apart. What's going to happen here in a few weeks if we have the issue with the riot starting possibly because of the incident with the lady getting beat up in the freeway by the California Highway Patrol, right? It could be that a riot could start from that, just like Rodney King's riots back in the 90s. If that happens, we're going to have another wave of white flight to the city. So I've been a member of this city, I've lived in the city most of my life. Every time there's a wave of crime in California, or earthquakes, like an AIDS crisis, there's a wave that comes to Oregon. And in Portland area. So when they had the AIDS epidemic in '86, massive influx into the city of people showing up from California. Then the Northridge earthquake happened in the late '80s or whatever. They rush up here, and in the Rodney King riots, they come up here. So this time, if this issue goes to a head and they don't solve it, there possibly might be a long, hot August summer. I don't have it with me. I should have brought it with me, but I have bond documents on my computer that show you the actual bonds. They're like 400-page documents that are issued to people who buy bonds to show what the document's risk. It shows the city's risk levels are, and helps assure the bondholder that they're going to be getting their interest rates and everything that they're being told that they're going to get. Right? It's a document that's issued to every bondholder. Okay. In that document, you'll see some Wall Street banks. Okay, so they're the underwriters that underwrite this debt. So the city goes out, and the city, unusually, like a lot of cities, has decided to build in their own bond-creating facility. Unlike other cities where they have to go to another party, like the actual Wall Street banks themselves, in order to have a bond securities created, our city has a bond-making facility built into it. And they have their own private lawyers that work with them and everything to create these documents. And then they work with the banks and Wall Street to underwrite it. Okay, well what happens is, these bonds, ultimately what happens with them is that they get issued and people buy them. And the reason why they're buying them is because they're usually wealthy people who are looking for a kind of a guaranteed return on their investment, and usually they're willing to accept a lower interest rate than they would get from other investments.
Guaranteed return on investments.
And the reason why is because they're in such a high tax bracket that if the capital gains taxes will hit them really hard if they invest in other things. So they're willing to take a hit and go for a lower interest rate bonds, like municipal bonds that are non-taxable. They're willing to accept that because it assures them of a fixed amount of return, as opposed to go out and invest in something that has a higher rate of return and then getting hit with taxes.
Deep.
So this is wealthy people.
Yeah.
And what happens is a lot of these wealthy people live right in our city. They're up in the West Hills, and that's one of the reasons why up in the West Hills, those people up there, when they have their sewer hookup fee, they're not going to pay for it, according to this Oregonian article. The Oregonian is saying the city of Portland is going to cover their sewer upgrades up in the West Hills. Whereas here on the east side, like in my street, the guys in our neighborhood have to pay $12,000 a piece to rehook up the sewer. That is a disgrace, okay? So what it is the people who own the bonds, to get the borrower server to the lender, the people who own the bonds get to tell City Hall what to do. So I have a statement that I make in one of my writings, and basically what I'm saying is one phone call from a major bondholder will raise the level of animation in the City Hall and in the mayor higher than 1,000 people screaming out in the streets who are residents. Because the bondholder has so many millions of dollars worth of bonds he's holding, and if he gets pissed off, he could cause some financial havoc with the city's credit rating or whatever. And so they listen to what he says. One little guy who might be living up in the West Hills somewhere or down in the Cayman Islands or something.
So you have the information on the bondholders?
I know the people who buy them are rich because the interest rate's too low for anybody else to be interested in it. You and I wouldn't be interested in it because the interest rate's too low. But the reason why the only people who buy these are rich because they're in the tax bracket where they would get too heavy of a tax if they invested in something else.
Are most of them local?
I don't know. That's a great mystery.
So it's a little bit of everything. You have people on the west side. You might have people from somewhere else.
Right. I think, yeah, they could be all over the United States.
And is China involved? Is China
it could be overseas.
Things we could ask and look into. HSBC, are they involved?
It could be anybody who buys them. It could be someone overseas owns it. It could be Chinese. It could be somebody in the East Coast.
So we need to get the information. Who are the bondholders?
And it's hard to figure out who the bondholders are because that's highly held secret. That's usually known by the Wall Street banks.
Okay, so now we're getting into some deep stuff.
Yeah, and that's hard to do. I think the mayor knows, because when the mayor takes a phone call, I believe
the mayor knows who the bondholders are.
Some of them are, yeah. And I think the people in the commission knows who they are, and that's who they're beholden to. And that's why they ignore the voters. They ignore the local residents who complain about issues at City Hall, because they know that they've got the bondholders' interests to secure, and they're more interested in pleasing the bondholders than they are the actual residents of the city. And the reason why it's the bondholders, if the city goes bankrupt, there's two groups that will be fighting it out. There'll be the bondholders who will be fighting for their first lien claims on the city's debt and the city's assets, and there's also pension funds. If you watch Detroit's bankruptcy, those are the two groups that fight it out. And so what happens is it goes back and forth. Sometimes the bondholders win in the battle and they want their money back. Sometimes the pension holders want their money back, and it's been going back and forth in court. I don't know what the solution is right now. The recent court cases, I don't know what's happened there, but that's a mess over there. And that's what will happen to this city when we go in debt and go bankrupt, is there will be a battle between the bondholders and the pensioners.